from Art Kids. Welcome to Tuition in a Tube online tutorial. This is Madison.
Hello.
And this is Alan.
Hello.
And we're going to lead you through the step-by-step instructions to show you how to draw the owl. Would you like to get your tubes and see inside? Inside the tube you have a box which has a pencil, a pen, a pencil sharpener and an eraser. There's also a template if you need it to start your picture. There's a skills practice sheet which teaches you how to do some of the marks that we need to do. There's another practice sheet that just gives you the chance to try out some of the feathers and things on the owl. There are some step-by-step instructions and there's a finished picture of the owl for you to copy. So first of all we're going to start with our skills practice sheet. So if you want to get that one. Okay, maybe you just move the other things out of the way. And we want the pen. On the skills practice sheet, we're just going to practice using our pen in different ways. This will help us to do a really good finished drawing. So the first thing we're going to do, if you hold your pen really lightly, so you're not squeezing it tight, you're just holding it lightly. And then in the top little box, we're going to do some light marks, but we're going to do them, if you imagine, we want to do it so that we're hardly touching the paper. So just really, really light marks. Yeah, that's lovely. So we're just doing it as lightly as we can. Right, good. For the next one, we're going to hold the pen a little bit tighter, and this time we're just going to press a bit harder, and that will give us a nice dark mark, which is when we can use this for shadows. Right, good. Right, that looks good. And then another thing that's used in drawing a lot is cross-hatching. So to do cross-hatching, to start off with, we're just going to do some diagonal lines going that way. And then I find it easier to turn my paper. You could do this as well if you want to. And then do some going back the other way. Right, excellent. Yeah, that's good. Next we're going to look at some feather marks. If you look at the picture you can see that the feathers are all different. So on the top of the head we're going to do some curvy marks. If you just watch this, I'm going to kind of curve my marks around, and to start off with I'm just doing these little lines. Can you see that? This is going to create the top of the head, and then after a while I'm just going to add in a few darker bits like this, and this is just to create the effect of the small feathers on the head. So do you want to have a go at that? Right, brilliant. Right, if you look on the chest, can you see at the top it has all these fluffy feathers? So watch this. To do the fluffy feathers, this time I'm going to use my pen lightly like we did at the start, and just watch this, Madison. I'm just going to do, can you see a few lines? So I'm imagining it's like a really fluffy little feather, and then in the middle I'm just making it a bit darker. So do you want to have a go at that one? Right, excellent, good. For the next one we're going to have a look at the tail feathers. So this is a longer shape feather. So if you watch, to start off with I'm just going to do a long line, and then at the bottom it's just got a pointy end, so it looks a bit like an L shape. Do you want to try that? Right, that's perfect. And I'm going to use cross-hatching this time, and I find it quite useful. If you use your finger, it can help kind of stop where the pen's going, so you can create a line. And I'm going to do it in a kind of stripy pattern to start off with, and just diagonal lines going across one way. So have a go at that. And then, I don't know about you, but I always find it easier to turn my page. So to do the lines going back the other way, and we're just cross hatching. And this helps create a nice texture. Okay, good. And just one last thing, if you just watch mine for a minute, I'm just going to do a few lines going this way, and this creates a bit of shadow between each of the feathers. So just down one edge, we're doing the shadow. Next we're going to use our pencil. So if you get your pencil, it's a good idea when you're working in pen to do some of the drawing in pencil first. And that way, if you make a mistake, you can easily rub it out, which obviously you can't do with the pen. So we're going to have a go at doing the eye. So to start off with, we just want to do 3 circles. So a larger one on the outside, a smaller one for the pupil, and then inside. And also, if you look, it almost looks like the owl's got an eyebrow. So we're just going to draw a curve going around like that, that looks a bit like an eyebrow. So if you just get your pen back. Right, what we're going to do, we're going to start off by colouring in the pupil. So if you go around that circle, if you look at mine, and then we're just going to colour everywhere, but we're going to leave the highlight so it looks nice and shiny. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and then if you just go around the outside of the eye, we're just going to draw along this line here with the pen. And then for the rest of this, we're going to do a bit of cross hatching. So just watch this a minute. I'm actually going to go over the top of the eye, but I'm just going to make sure I don't go over the highlight. This creates a little bit of shadow going one way, and then I'm going to turn and come back the other way. Okay, and then cross hatch the other way. And lastly, we're just going to practice some of the feather marks around the eye. So if you look on the picture, can you see how they kind of curve around? So again, I find it easier to turn my paper. Watch this. I'm just going to do some quick light marks, and they're going to follow round in a semicircle. And that's just going to give us the lines around the eye that create the feather marks. Can you see? It looks a bit like sunshine. Right, brilliant. These are looking good. Should look great on the picture. Okay, good. We're going to try the beak next. So for the beak, if we just draw the pointy shape, this will, if you've used the template, you'll already have that shape there, but we're just drawing it on the practice sheet. That good? Just like a nice pointy triangle. And then we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to do lines going down one side, but watch this. This time I'm going to slightly curve the lines. Can you see that? It just helps make it look like a roundy shape. So do that on both sides. That's good. See if you can do nice curvy lines, nice and lightly. That's good. Okay, great. And then we're just going to do another little bit of cross hatching on there. So whenever we do cross hatching, we're making a shadow. And it just helps make the beak look more of a 3D shape. In a very similar way, we're going to practice the claw. So this time, it's not just a triangle, it's a bit more of a curvy shape with a very sharp point on the end. Looks a bit like a moon shape. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to shade on one side and then go back and make it darker at the bottom. Right, very well done. Right, I'm going to swap back to my pencil again. And we're just going to have a go at drawing the branch that the owl's sitting on. So I'm going to start off with a kind of cylinder shape. So if you draw a circle for yourself at the end. And then we're just going to do the lines going along. You can make it a little bit bumpy because branches don't have perfect straight lines. And then don't forget, if it's a cylinder shape, it's also got a curve at the other end as well. Right, brilliant. Have you done yours? Yeah, that's lovely. Back to the pen. Okay, I'm going to try a couple of different things here. The first thing that I'm going to do is do some curvy marks around like this. Why do you think I might be doing these curvy?
To make the shape right, the cylinder shape.
Yeah, it helps make it look 3D, doesn't it? So if you just go along the length of it, making it nice and curvy, and you could do the same at the bottom. Right, good. And then for the texture, I'm going to do some lines going along that way. So that's going to help me create, I'm trying to create what the bark looks like. So I can create some texture on the wood. And that's it, we've kind of finished practicing now, so we're ready to go on to the finished picture. We're ready to start our final drawing now, so if you get your piece of cartridge paper, might be a good idea to swap your papers around, and if you put your owl drawing on top, then you've got something to copy. Okay, just pop that over there. And then we want the template. So if you get your template, place it on your paper. Make sure that you've got some space all the way around and some room at the bottom where we're going to add the branching. Okay, and then if you get your pencil, and we're just lightly going to draw around, you need to turn yours that way. We're just going to lightly draw around the outside of the template. Remember, it might be a good idea just to hold it with your fingers, especially when you get down towards the claws. If you just go around, maybe use your finger just to keep the claws in place, otherwise you might find they move. They're quite thin. Right, then if you just draw in the eyes and the beak. So the lighter the better really, because we don't really want the lines to show up through the drawing. Okay, if you take your template off, and what we're going to do next, we're just going to draw in some of the feather marks with the pencil, because as I was saying earlier, it's better to do it in pencil so that if you make a mistake you can rub it out. So the first thing I'm going to do, just to help me a bit later on, I'm just going to draw in this eyebrow shape, and they kind of come down diagonally, making him look like he's a bit cross. So they come down from the ear down towards the beak. And then we're just going to lightly mark in some of the feather marks. So all I'm going to do around the eye is just do a couple of lines of semicircles just to show where they're going to go. Right, that's good. And then just under the chin, it's just got these light fluffy ones. I'm just going to do a few, they're almost like little U shapes really. So if you want to just draw some of those going along, just like a U shape. Really lightly, because this is just a guide really. And if you can on the chest, it's good to curve them round instead of doing a straight line. If we curve them, it helps create that nice roundy shape of the body. So try and just press lightly with your pencil, that's good. Right, well done. And then if you just watch this, I'm just going to show you a few wing feathers. Can you see this one, Madison? These, watch this, it's a longer shape, and then it's a bit like a leaf shape really. Can you see how it goes at the bottom? I'm just going to do one layer, and then underneath I'm going to do another layer the same. So just going down the wing. Right, that's it. Do you want to try a couple of those ones on the wing? So this time they're longer, like a kind of leafy shape. And they go down in layers. And what happens is they get longer as you go down the wing. You can see here as I'm getting down towards the bottom of the body here, the feathers just get a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to make sure whilst I'm here that I'm just going to draw in the shapes of the claws. Yeah, lovely. And then right at the bottom, can you see there are just 3 big feathers? These are the tail feathers, so just 3 big ones right down at the bottom. They kind of follow on from the pointy shape. And then lastly, before we start using the pen, we're just going to draw the details of the eye. And we're going to do this exactly like we did on the practice sheet. So we've already got the big circle. So the middle circle for the pupil and the highlight. Right, excellent. And then we can change to our pen. So we're just going to start with the pen and right at the top doing these soft curvy marks. So I'm just adding these darker bits just to help show us where the different feathers are. We're going to try some of the feathers in the ear. So for this I'm leaving part of the ear white, and then the other bit I'm just doing some black marks. If you watch, can you see they almost look like furry marks? Can you see that? And that just helps give a little bit of depth to the ear. Right, lovely. And then we're going to do the eye. So can you remember what we did for the eye? Do you remember how we did the 3 circles? So as we've already drawn them in pencil, if you draw around your outside circle first, then your middle one, and then you can colour in around the highlight. We need to do that on both of them. So all of this we've already practiced, so this should be quite easy now. Outlining the outer circle, then the pupil, and not forgetting the highlight, and then shading them in. And this part we're doing exactly like we did it on the practice sheet. So shading the pupil. And then if you just watch this bit, do you remember for the eye, we drew in these kind of eyebrow shapes, and then we did the cross hatching. And if you remember, a little bit of it goes over the eye, but we have to make sure that we don't actually colour over the highlight. Right, that's good. And then you can start working on the feathers. And then we do the other eye exactly the same way. Looks a bit cross.
Mine does.
So just finishing off this second eye. Okay, good. And then the beak. So for the beak, I'm going to draw around the shape first. And then if you remember, we did the very light, slightly curvy marks down one side. And then again, if you want to turn your paper, do them down the other side. And then the tone, that's the darker bit. With the pen, we're working from the top and gradually working down. Why do you think we might be doing that? Can you think of a reason?
Because it doesn't get smudged.
Yeah, good, because with a pen it's very easy to smudge your work. So we start at the top of the head and work our way down. So what we're going to do next, we're going to do these feathers going around the eye. So do you remember we did this on the practice sheet? So start off from right next to the eye. I always think of this a bit like lines of sunshine. It looks like the lines going around the sun, and we're just going to follow around. We need to do that with both eyes. Right, good. And then if you look at this and at the picture as well, you can see there's another line kind of, so there's a gap, and then there's another line going around the outside, and this one's more like a semicircle. And then again a bit further there. So there's a little gap where the feathers are lighter. Very good. We've almost finished the head. Right, that's good. And then if you just take a quick look at the picture, can you see these marks here under the beak? We're just going to do a few flicky marks just coming out from the beak. So these are just the rest of the feathers on the head. Can you see those ones? So they're kind of shooting out from the side. Yeah, that's good. Right, lovely. And then under the beak, we're going to do some of these little fluffy marks. So we've already drawn the shapes in pencil, but I'm just going to go over these, and I'm just going to do some of these tiny little fluffy, almost looks like a little pom-pom type thing. You could maybe do a couple of lines of those. You could curve them around a little bit to show the shape of the body. Okay, that's good. And then if you just watch this on the wing feather, do you remember with the wings we said that they're a bit more like a kind of leafy shape? So I'm going to do this like we practiced. I'm going to do some cross hatching, but can you see I've left a little white line around the edge? This helps me show the difference between one feather and the next. So we're just leaving a little gap around the edge of the feather so that we can see where the edge is and where the shadow is. Can you see? I'm just leaving that bit. And this is quite easy now because it's just repeated the same all the way down the wing. Right, that's looking good. What we're doing at the moment, we're just working our way down the body and the wing, and really the feathers are all pretty much the same, so we want a light edge on the outside and a bit of shadow. Carrying on in the same way, with these feathers coming down the body, little bits of shadow in between, and I like to go back over bits sometimes and just darken up certain areas. It just helps create the effect of the feathers. And similarly on the wings, you might look and feel like you need extra shadow. But this is the same thing as we practiced before, where we're adding the stripes onto the feathers and then doing the cross hatching in between to show the difference between one feather and the one next to it. So we just keep on working our way down like this. As we get down to the tail feathers are much bigger, but they're also lighter. So as we practiced before, we're going to hold the pencil really lightly and do very light marks here. We want to show that these feathers are not as dark as the ones on the rest of the body. And with this kind of drawing, it can take quite a long time to do the whole thing. So you don't have to do it all in one go. You could maybe go off and do something else, or even come back the next day and do a bit more. Because that way you're more likely to get a much better finished picture. One of my favourite bits to do is doing the claws, because I like making them look really sharp and pointy. So see if you can do that lovely curvy shape with a really sharp point on the end, and then the shading that helps make it look nice and shiny. Yeah, lovely. To do the branch, we're going to actually go back to our pencil. So if you just grab your pencil again, because we just want to get it drawn in first of all. So can you remember how we did this?
We first drew the circle and then the two parallel lines.
Yeah, that's good. One thing you have to make sure of, make sure that the branch goes right up to the claws and the claws are sitting on the branch. Otherwise the owl's going to look like he's jumping up in the air. So let's have a go at just drawing the circle shape at this end. So right up to the claws. And then just like Alan said, we're doing the parallel lines going along there. And we need to make sure we do a curve there as well. Right, good. Now he's got something to sit on. Right, good. If you get your pen now, we can make a start on creating the shape for the branch. So can you remember what marks we said we did first of all?
Curvy marks.
Yeah, good. Curvy marks again. So nice curvy marks with your pen. I would do these quite lightly to start off with. So some along the top and some along the bottom. And then we can do some cross hatching for shading. Well done. This is just helping us get the shape. And then if we want to add some shadow with some cross hatching. If you want to add a crack into the wood, you can just do a nice dark black line like this, and that gives the effect of a crack going along the wood. And then the edge of the bark going around there. Just doing these curvy lines here to show the grain in the wood as well. You want to be careful not to make your shadow too dark around the claws, otherwise the claws won't stand out so much. So it's a good idea just to leave a little bit of white around there. And then again, I'm going to do these marks that are helping show the texture of the bark. I'm getting much darker underneath where the darkest shadow is. So we're just doing the finishing touches on our owls, and when you're doing yours, it's up to you how much time you want to spend with the final details. The more ink you put on, the darker your picture will look. So, are we finished?
Yeah.
Shall we show them? Okay. Ta-da! We hope you've enjoyed watching, and we also hope it helps you to do a really good picture as well. If you've enjoyed doing the owl, we also have Teddy in a tube and Squirrel in a tube. And you can find these on our webpage, artkids.co.uk, and we also have a page on Facebook. But for now, bye. Till next time.